What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big news that came out involving Elon Musk and Tesla, what's happening with the share price thus far, and what you should be watching for as time goes on. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. Anyways, as far as Tesla's going, as you guys can tell, we've been trying to make higher lows. At one point, Tesla was forming a bottom at this 215 area. Then we ended up forming a higher low right here. This is where our base was at 275. Then the low was at 290, then 300, and so far Tesla's been on an uptrend. When you zoom out, you could also look at this and see that there's a trend line that could be drawn like this, which shows that Tesla's trying to make higher lows as long as you hold above 326. Now today, Tesla tried to break out. We saw an attempt to push for the low 340s, only for Tesla to turn back down. We're still holding this support, so it is a very, very good sign that Tesla's trying to make higher lows still, and we could still slowly uptrend in this trendline area to continue to push for now, especially as SPY and the QQQ are trying to bounce, as we're seeing lots of tech stocks trying to bounce. That could greatly benefit Tesla. So heading into tomorrow, I do think Tesla could try to bounce if we hold this trend line, but it might not just go straight up. There will be times where we push, we dip a bit, we push higher, but overall, we're still technically on an uptrend, and Tesla's still holding up well on the 4-hour basis. On the daily time frame, Tesla has kind of like an indecisive candle, which could contribute to some consolidation before potentially dipping and then bouncing and going a little bit higher. So I'll talk more about these circumstances in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about Elon Musk and Tesla. So we have some big pieces of news that just came out. So Elon Musk's Tesla Optimus is here. Once again, it's very, very awesome, helping to increase productivity, and it's able to do a lot of very, very useful tasks. This is very, very awesome in my opinion. Elon Musk responded and said, "You're welcome." Once again, putting a lot of work into this. The whole Tesla team deserves credit. And simultaneously, there's been some news that came out from Sawyer Merritt about how the Model Y is a very, very awesome vehicle. They were testing and seeing a lot of positive things, such as the fact that it has over 300 miles of range, and it's very, very awesome. Musk, I think he reposted this and said that it was a great car, so that's also some good news. Elon Musk also made some claims about the humanoid robots after Tesla's new master plan had come out. He was talking about how the humanoid robots are going to be key for them moving forward, and that 80% of Tesla's value will be Optimus. That's what Elon Musk said. He said that Optimus is going to grow so much to the point where this is what Tesla's going to be all about in the future, and this is going to help them big time. He thinks there's going to be millions, if not billions, of these humanoid robots at one point, and because Tesla's so ahead of the game, they're going to be ahead of many of their competitors. And then eventually, as these humanoid robots expand, we're going to see this bring in billions, if not trillions of dollars of revenue for Tesla. That's what Elon Musk is saying. Musk also mentioned, or at least Tesla said this, and then Musk responded, that we are building the products and services that bring AI into the physical world, and that they've been working tirelessly for nearly 2 decades to create the foundation for this technological renaissance through the development of EVs, energy products, and humanoid robots. Once again, that's very, very key. This also makes up their master plan. I think the master plan is great, but keep in mind that a lot of this is just repeated work. We've known that Tesla's been developing AI and they're working very hard on their robots, and it's going to be very, very bullish for the longer term. On top of this, the growth is infinite, according to what Tesla's telling us, and that they're working on innovation and they're helping us basically transition away from fossil fuels slowly as we once again look at alternative motives. And then on top of this, you guys can see there's pictures of Optimus working, and it's basically the future, which is what Tesla's been talking about for quite some time. There's even pictures of it interacting with people, helping them out in a lot of different ways. So this is what Tesla's been talking about for quite a while. This is what their main plan has been. I think Elon Musk reposted this and he was talking about how he believes Optimus is going to be huge for Tesla. That is even more bullish news. Wedbush is saying Tesla is going to likely outperform the market, and then we're also seeing the price-price ratio on an uptrend. Tesla's still holding up decently. Thursdays, however, tend to be green only about 47% of the time, and Fridays tend to be green about 49% of the time. So we'll see if we get some kind of bounce after that, but for now, we're watching some key levels. As far as Tesla's going, we're technically making higher lows, which is a good sign. So I need to see Tesla hold 326 at the very least. As long as we hold this, we could be looking for an attempt for 340 again and some consolidation before potentially going a bit higher. On top of this, SPY and the QQQ are also bouncing as a result of a big lawsuit involving Google. This ended up causing a big push in the tech sector, which greatly benefited Tesla and the overall tech sector, like the QQQ, the NASDAQ, and many other tech sectors. So what happened was the US district judge has come out and he basically went over the penalties of Google for their monopolistic practices, but they're nowhere near as bad as previously expected, which is why the share price is doing so well. The judge determined the penalties against Google, and they're not going to force Google to sell off their Chrome browser. That's very, very bullish news for them. They're not going to be forced to sell off their Chrome browser, despite the fact that they do have some regulations they have to kind of like um, enter. So they basically cannot enter exclusive contracts that relate to the distribution, of the Google search, Chrome, Google Assistants, and such. However, at the same time, there was some good news. They're basically not going to be having to pay Apple to make Google the default search provider on its devices. That is some good news as well. So there were some negative things, some restrictions for Google, and then some good news. But the good news really outperformed and offset the bad news. I think that's very, very bullish. That's why the share price is doing well. So that's some very, very bullish news for Google. The fact that they don't have to necessarily sell their Chrome browsers, and once again, they don't have to deal with more regulations with Apple. That's very, very bullish. That's part of why the share price is up, at least for now. On top of this, we had one of our Fed governors, Christopher Waller, come out saying that he could see cuts by the Fed in September, but it also depends on the data. So that's a good piece of news. And then there's also been some news involving President Trump. He mentioned that he wants to basically go to the Supreme Court to basically come out and once again appeal the tariff decision by the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals basically ruled that the law that President Trump used to impose these tariffs does not give him the power to do that, which would negate the tariffs in October. But until then, President Trump has some time, which is why he's appealing to the superior courts. He wants them to basically make a different decision, and he's been talking about that, how he's optimistic about it, but there's going to be a plan B in case things don't go their way. That's what President Trump has been saying so far. On top of this, Macy's had their earnings. They beat on EPS and revenue, and we saw a big increase in their overall outlook, which is why the share price is up for Macy's. Great job by them. Tomorrow, we just have Broadcom and very, very minor earnings, lots of retail. However, there is important data coming out tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, we have initial jobless claims coming out. Expect some volatility with that. And then at 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Composite PMI. This may cause some volatility. And then at 10 o'clock a.m., we essentially have the ISM Services, new orders, prices, and employment, which may cause more volatility, so be ready for that. On top of this, the Fear and Greed Index is currently at neutral. Momentum's at neutral. We're going to see if this climbs. And the VIX could be dipping a bit as it's starting to dip a little bit. It's kind of like neutral, so we'll see how that goes. With that being said, what do I think is going to happen to Tesla? Well, looking at Tesla, we had a low here, came up, higher low came up, higher low came up. So it's still trying to make higher lows and slowly inch its way up towards like 350, which is still technically bullish. But Tesla's not ready to just break out like that because once we touched 340, we weren't able to hold above that today, which makes me suspect there might be some consolidation for Tesla, at least temporarily. When you look at the daily time frame, we saw like a sideways day. We pushed in the morning, then we came back down, then we pushed towards the end of the day. Once again, closing somewhat green, but also kind of like flat. So here's my prediction. If you're a bear, just hypothetically, if you want to be a bear, you want to see us lose 326. If we lose that tomorrow, look for a dump on Tesla. If you're a bull, you want to see us hold above 340. If that holds, we could be looking for 346, but we need to close above 340. I think that tomorrow morning we're going to see consolidation between 332 and 338. We consolidate for some time. Then we slowly push for the low 340s, and we'll see if we break out higher with that going on. So look for some sideways price action, then an attempt to push higher for the low 340s. I think that's the most likely possibility for Tesla. Look for a test of 338, a dip back down, some consolidation before we try pushing for 342. I think that's the most likely for Tesla moving forward. So watch and see how that ends up going. Another reason why Tesla may bounce is because when you look at SPY and the QQQ on the 30 minutes time frames, we dip and get bought back up. We dip, get bought back up. We dip, get bought back up on SPY. Same thing with the QQQ. We keep on getting bought back up, which makes me suspect there is still some upside potential, which could also help Tesla try to bounce to some extent. So I think Tesla's going to see some consolidation and some upside. I think we retest 33 6 to 338. Then we dip back down and consolidate before we start pushing for the 340s. I believe that's the most likely possibility for Tesla. There's a good chance we just kind of consolidate before going even higher. That's most likely what Tesla's going to be doing. If we end up losing essentially 330, we could be dipping a bit more on Tesla, but I think that for now we're holding this trend line. We're holding this trend line, so it's going to likely continue to consolidate and bounce. I predict that's what's going to happen to Tesla. A bit of a push right here towards that 338 area, some consolidation, then an attempt to go even higher, which is what Tesla's going to try to do, at least for now. Now, I do think that in September, there's going to be some kind of correction for the markets. I still believe that, but we're not ready yet. And the best thing to do is just follow the price action and read your charts. So for now, Tesla's going to likely consolidate and push higher, even though there is some risk of downside later on. We're not ready for that yet. So I still favor consolidation and upside. On SPY, notice that there is a possible left shoulder right here, ahead, and a right shoulder forming. And we're going to see if we kind of like turn down like that, if that head and shoulders pans out. If you're a bear, you want to see us essentially lose 640 to start dumping. If you're a bull, you want to see us push for 644 and break that's to push back up to the high here. My gut tells me we're going to consolidate and start pushing for 646. And we'll see if we break past this to go higher or not. But I do think that there's a chance we go a little bit higher as time goes on. So if we lose 640, we could be bearish. We could be dipping back down to 638. If we break 644, we're bullish. I predict we consolidate around 644 for some time. Then we start slowly pushing for 646. And then we're going to see if we kind of like turn back down like this to form a left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder. So watch that very closely. But I see some consolidation, then some upside around 646 as the most likely possibility. And we'll see what happens after that. As far as the QQQ goes, as you can tell, we're kind of consolidating. Now, if we end up losing 566, we're bearish. But if we break 570, we're bullish. I anticipate there's going to be some more upside if we break 570. If 570 breaks, we could continue to push a little bit higher. Now, notice that the QQQ also has this trend line above here acting as resistance where we rejected and rejected many times. So I would not be surprised if we push towards that trend line and then maybe reject again. So we could try to slowly consolidate tomorrow around 570. Then we could be looking for an attempt for 572 or above. And then we're going to see if we eventually get a rejection, start dipping as we get to mid-September. Why is that? Because what you'll notice is that we have a left shoulder, head, and then right shoulder. We could try to push a bit higher, but this trend line could act as resistance, and we could still reject here if we get some kind of bearish move. So we could still be bearish if we get a rejection. For now, we're bullish. We might temporarily push a little higher for the low 570s, but then for the medium term, there is that risk of rejection on the QQQ, so be very careful because of this head and shoulders. That basically tells us that temporarily, Tesla stock might try to bounce with the market as we're trying to hold this trend line. So we might see Tesla just consolidate here, then eventually push for 340 again. There's a good chance that's what's going to happen. On the IWM, we have something else very interesting going on. If we lose 231, we're going to be turning back down. But if we break past 236, we're going to be looking for a bigger push. I would not be surprised if we touch 236, and we're going to see if we end up getting a rejection or not. See if this is the left shoulder, head, and right shoulder on the IWM. That could lead to a lot more volatility. So you want to be very, very careful, at least nonetheless. That's going to be key for how we end up moving. On ES, if we end up losing 6,400, we're going to be looking for a dump. But keep in mind that when you zoom out, you basically have a left shoulder, a head, and a right shoulder forming here. And then we're going to see if we get a rejection, kind of turn back down from there off that head and shoulders. Now, if we lose 6,400, we're bearish. But if we break 6,450, we're looking for a attempt for 6,480, then 6,500. My gut tells me we're going to be going for a consolidation tomorrow and then slowly push for 6,480 to 6,500 by Friday. And then we're going to see if we turn back down after that. But there is some temporary upside potential. On NQ, so long as we don't lose 23,300, we're going to be favoring an attempt for 23,600 as our target, and then we're going to see if we turn back down from there. But overall, we're holding up quite nicely. Bitcoin's consolidating, looking for 113,000. We're going to see if we reject, but there is some upside potential. Tesla, as long as we hold this trend line, we could consolidate and slowly push for 338 or above, and we'll see if we reject. But there is some upside potential here. Nvda is once again trying to hold 169 as our support, and we're going to see if we bounce or not. If we lose this, we could be dipping, but I would not be surprised if we end up dipping to like 169 before we consolidate, then possibly bounce again. Once again, all this is good for Tesla. I do think Tesla consolidates here before it slowly pushes for 340 again. It's not super strong, but not super weak, and we're still holding our trend line, which is still bullish until we break it. So for now, we're doing a good job. Apple looks very bullish. We're holding up very nicely. Strong close. We're up 4% for the day. As long as we don't end up losing 235 or favoring consolidation and a push for 240, I think the most likely possibility is that we try to go a bit higher. So we're going to see how that ends up going. For Netflix, we have a nice accumulation right here. If we end up losing essentially 1216, we could be looking for more downside. But as long as we hold this, we could be looking for a bounce for 1235. For Microsoft, sorry, not Microsoft, MicroStrategy, we're on a downtrend. We're going to see what happens right over here off this 335 resistance to see if we reject. We could test 335, then reject. Celsius is consolidating. It might be retesting 59.6. And we'll see if it bounces. We're making lower highs, so it might make a lower high dip for 59.6. Supermicro is technically on a downtrend. We're going to see if we bounce or not. We could be dipping back down towards this 39 area, and we're going to see if we bounce. I think we retest 39.5, then rebound for 41, just consolidate for now. Palantir could be retesting 152, and we'll see if we bounce or not. We're just kind of range bound between 152 and 160. So look for 152, and we'll see if we bounce back up to 156 before we continue to, dip. Rivian might end up continuing to uptrend. It could retest 14.25 before it tries to bounce higher. SoFi could be dipping back down to 23.8. AMD might consolidate. We have resistance at 163 and support at 158, so I expect some consolidation. AMD might be dipping back down to 129, and then PayPal might be looking for a attempt for 70 as our targets. Coinbase may also consolidate and dip back down to 198, and Amazon's going to be favoring a push for basically 231. I think that Meta is consolidating. We're going to likely trade sideways between 740 and 731. I just see a lot of sideways price action for now. Google, however, is bullish, favoring 232.5 and 235 as our targets. As long as 230 holds, we're looking more bullish. And then Microsoft looks kind of weak here. It might be retesting 500. We're going to see if it bounces. This is why the market might see some consolidation tomorrow morning, but then we'll see if we bounce depending on our data. Don't forget we have the ISM services data at 10 o'clock a.m. DJT is dipping a bit. The VIX is also dipping here, which is bullish for the stock market. I think the 15s are coming for the VIX soon. The 10-year is also going to likely consolidate, maybe come down a bit, especially after what Waller said from the Fed. The dollar could be dipping if we lose 98, and then also Celsius is dipping. So my honest assessment is that we're holding these trend lines acting as support. We're just kind of like bouncing off of them. And as long as we hold this, we're going to likely continue to uptrend for 338 to 340. So I see some upside potential in Tesla. Look for some consolidation in the morning, then attempts to push for 338 to 340 again. But we might not just break out. We might just see, a slow price action for now on Tesla because volume is not that great. And overall, we're still hitting this resistance and not really breaking through it. So we're just kind of trading sideways for now. So I do think there's going to be sideways price action and some upside as time goes on. But the overall market could benefit Tesla, especially if SPY and the QQQ consolidates in the morning, then start pushing a bit higher. I would not be surprised if SPY goes up to 646 and then the QQQ pushes for 572 temporarily. Now, there could be downside coming later on in September towards the end of the month, but we're not ready to reject yet. For now, the market's going to go a bit higher. So watch your levels, play the price action, be very, very patient. It's a very tricky market, so you want to be very patient with the price action, and I'll be back very, very soon with another update. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best. I thank you all so much for listening, so have a good one, and I'll be back very, very soon. Have a great rest of your guys' days, nights, or evenings, and I'll be back very soon. Have a good one, and peace out.